Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. So today we're going to be having a play with the YSL Touche Eclat All-in-One Glow Foundation. So I have mine in the shade B30, which is Almond. All the information you need about these foundations will be up here. This isn't a straight first impressions for me because I just wanted to try it out a few times so I could give you guys a bit more information about it. The strange thing about this foundation slash tinted moisturizer kind of product is that there seems to be some differences between what is available in the UK and what is available in the US. The US has one more shade. The packaging is slightly different to this, so it looks exactly the same, but they have more writing down here in the US. The US, it claims to have SPF 23, I think. In the UK, I can't find anything mentioning SPF. So I don't think it has SPF in it, which means it's obviously a different formula. The reviews on the UK site, John Lewis, where it's exclusive at the moment, are very, very good. On the US site, so in Sephora, they are less good. Most of the reviews seem to agree that it is very luminous, very hydrating, and lots of people mentioned that it's incredibly similar to the original Touche Eclat foundation before they changed the formula of that one. So very luminous, very lightweight, and all that kind of stuff. It's got some really nice skincare ingredients in here, and due to the fact that it's really hydrating, it should be really good for dry skin. However, lots of comments on the Sephora website are saying that people with dry skin have not enjoyed it. It clings to dry patches and things like that. So the formula is something like 70% water, I'm sure I read. So I'm going to prime my skin with the MAC Prep and Prime Natural Radiance because that is a very watery, liquidy foundation without silicone. So I'm hoping that this will work nicely with this foundation slash tinted moisturizer. Really love the packaging. It's like a tube with a pump inside, so really good for travel, really hygienic, all that good stuff. Make sure you can get every ounce of product out. It really reminds me as a whole of the Urban Decay Naked One and Done, which was like a big favorite of mine for quite a while. And there are some differences. You get 10 mils extra with this one. It's £5 or $10 cheaper. This one definitely not as luminous as this one, and just to me does not look as nice on the skin. So it's, you know, pros and cons. So as I said, I have used this a good few times, and I 100% recommend using a brush rather than a sponge, because that is how I found the finish looks nicer. You get more out of your product. Because it is like a tinted moisturizer, very thin consistency, very watery. If you use a sponge, you will lose a lot of product to your sponge. So I would massively recommend using a brush, but I will do half and half for those of you who only really want to use a sponge, so you can see the difference for yourself. It does have a really strong sort of perfumed scent like all YSL foundations do. You can see it on my brush there. I've put a decent dollop on, and it is surprisingly thick, kind of. I say it's thick. The second it goes on your skin, it turns almost to like really watery. So let's see. So you will see immediately the shade is too light for me. The shade range of this foundation slash tinted moisturizer is really poor. Like I said, 11 or 12 shades depending on where you are. I'm usually a BD30 in YSL, but they didn't have that shade available. It was either this one, the next shade up was a neutral shade instead of warm, which I prefer, or BD40, which I was worried would be too dark. So shade range, definitely a problem. Again, I think because it's a tinted moisturizer, not a foundation, they kind of, you know, can get away with less shades because they'll say, oh, you know, it's not as much coverage, and people can use, you know, a shade that isn't as close and it will still look good, it will still match them well. But to me, that just doesn't work out. This is supposed to have medium coverage, so very much more on the foundation coverage side. That is quite a large amount of the product that I put on there just to do half the side of my face. As soon as you put this on, it is so hydrating and so cooling. It feels lovely. It literally feels like some kind of cooling gel that you've put on your skin. So light and beautiful. There's no brush strokes. It looks really lovely applied with that brush, but it is very light coverage. It's kind of taken away, as you can see, quite a bit of my redness, but there's still redness showing through. All of my marks beauty marks are showing through. It very much looks like skin. You can still see most of my skin showing through. So now we go in on the other side with my sponge, and again, you can just see the product doesn't move. But as soon as you put it on, it just feels lovely. So immediately, hopefully you guys can see much less coverage, much more redness showing through on this side, despite me using a very similar amount. It still applies nicely, evenly, all that kind of stuff, but you would have to use a really large amount of this product in order to build it up to sort of the brush coverage. So I feel like that's just a real waste of product, really, unless this is literally all the coverage you want. If you don't have things like redness, if you've got really young, beautiful, gorgeous, perfect skin, then great. But yeah, I think if you're looking for more of a light to medium coverage, you know, you've got something to cover, you're going to need to use a brush. I'm going to try and build that up so we are a bit more even on the sponge side and see how it builds. So I think that's probably about similar coverage now for about double the product on this side. I literally probably use the same amount of product again on the sponge side. So yeah, if you're really frivolous and you just want to use your sponge, then fine, but otherwise I'd really recommend a brush or you're going to lose a lot of product. So I've zoomed you in and turned my lights down so you can really see the foundation on the skin. So this is the sponge side, as I said. As you can see, very light coverage. Brush side probably still does have more coverage, actually, to be fair. A lot less redness showing through, I would say. You can see how dewy this foundation is right now. I do think it will dry down and be not quite as dewy by the time I finished my makeup, but it is very much a luminous foundation. But I will say, if you don't like the feel of foundation, this is going to be amazing for you because it feels, I mean, still now, it's been a few minutes since I put this on, I'm still getting that really cooling, crazy hydrating feeling on my face. It feels amazing, just beautiful. So refreshing. Like if you were like, you know, doing some kind of a walk of shame or something this morning and you put this on, you'd feel like a new woman or man. You would feel new is what you would feel. Like I feel like for a sleepover or, you know, a night out, you just want to whack something on before you leave. It would feel lovely. So I'm going to finish up the rest of my makeup and then I'll come back. Okay, so I'm back. I have finished my makeup. I've also been filming some other videos and I've had my lunch. So it's actually been a few hours since I put this foundation on. I did take a quick flash photo for you to show you how the foundation performs with a flash. So bearing in mind that the foundation is a shade too light for my skin tone, so it was going to look lighter anyway in a photo, but there is a slight white cast there in my opinion, or a slight like flashback happening, but it's not mega dramatic. So yeah, not too bad at all. Now that foundation has settled in, I didn't have any problems with putting my other products on top. Nothing moved or disrupted the foundation underneath. Was doing bronzer, blush, highlight and all that stuff. I used concealer and I have only set my foundation where I put the concealer. So under my eyes, nose, just here and on my chin. It has slightly soaked into my smile lines like every foundation does. Certainly not the worst that I've seen, but it has done that. And now that it's dried down, you can see it's lost quite a bit of the dewiness. I would say it's now more of a natural finish than a dewy finish particularly. Definitely still really light coverage, and I definitely haven't noticed any oxidization in this sort of 2 or 3 hours since I've had it on so far. I'll say something I've noticed about this foundation in the few times that I've worn it now, and that is that it does transfer fairly badly. So it's definitely not mum proof for me. So how I notice it is I cuddle my little girl and she had foundation on her shoulder, which is really annoying. It's one of the things I hate. You know, you feel like you can't hug someone, or if, you know, you sort of, you know, kiss someone hello on the cheek, you're going to leave foundation on their shoulder. This is one of those foundations that unfortunately is going to do that. I didn't notice it leaving any, you know, patchiness or taking the foundation off my face as such, but obviously it did have definitely some transfer. It's definitely not transfer proof, and it definitely is going to transfer on your clothes. Like if you were to take your jumper off, for example, it's going to be one of these that's going to leave foundation all over the neck. I'm kind of drawn to wanting to compare this with the Marc Jacobs Shameless foundation because they do have some similarities. They've got the same sort of plastic packaging. They are, you know, a similar price. They have a similar finish, and they claim to be a similar level of coverage as well. I have already reviewed the Shameless foundation, which I will link below, but as if you saw that review, you'll know that I love that foundation, and it is like becoming my holy grail, my new holy grail. So to compare this one to that one, this one has less coverage, way less, way worse shade range than the Marc Jacobs, and you get slightly less product. It is also, in my opinion, a lot less luminous of a finish. However, the big plus for this one is that it is much more smoothing, I think. The Marc Jacobs, if you have a lot of texture and that is your main concern, then I don't think you will like the Marc Jacobs, whereas this one I think is really looks nice and is really reducing my textured areas, which is like my chin and you know, up around my nose, and in areas like my lines. It all looks really nice. I think this will be brilliant for mature skin, but also really good for much younger skin, because it's really light on the skin. And if you have really nice skin with no redness and no acne or anything like the pigmentation that you want to cover up, this is going to give you really nice coverage, nice luminous finish, really nice skincare ingredients, and it will feel like nothing, look like nothing on the skin. So it might be a good option if you have mature skin, if you have textured skin, or if you don't like the feel or look of like heavy foundation, then I think it'd be a good choice. I finished putting this foundation on at about 11 AM and it is now 2, so this is like the 3-hour mark. I will check back again in a few hours once we've got to the 8 or 9 hour mark to see how it's wearing, but bye bye for now. Okay, so we are back. So I put my foundation, or finished putting my foundation on this morning about 11 AM and it's just gone 7:30. So this is the 8.5-ish hours mark. And I'm pretty impressed. I really wasn't expecting this to wear very well. I don't know why. I guess because it's kind of been described as a tinted moisturizer, and because it's very lightweight, very hydrating, you know, luminous, low coverage foundation. And I definitely feel like those foundations don't often wear as well as like a matte full coverage foundation. Those are kind of your longest wearing generally. But yeah, I'm really impressed. I don't have any complaints or concerns about this at all. So I've just zoomed you in so you can see now. You can see my redness here, but you could, when I originally applied this anyway, this is the sponge side, if you remember. This side is looking much more covered still, because this is the side that I used the brush on, which gave me a lot more coverage. So I think that, I don't think this is fading. I think this is just pretty much how we started. There is some fading on the tip of my nose and a little bit on my chin just here as well. But other than that, I might be looking, if I just zoom out so you can see my whole face, I might be looking slightly shiny in this area. I don't have oily skin, but when I use sort of really dewy foundations, I can get a little bit sort of shiny here and down the sides of my nose. I think sometimes those foundations can almost make you oily. So yeah, I don't know, I do not think that oily skinned people will enjoy this. I have that feeling about it, that if I'm looking a little sort of dewy in the center of my face by the end of the day, then probably someone with oily skin is going to look incredibly dewy by the end of the day, I would have thought. I feel like if you had dry skin but not dry patches, you would love this. It's incredibly hydrating. However, I have read some reviews saying that it clings badly to dry patches. So if you have dry patches, I don't believe it's going to be for you. And if you have something to cover, extreme redness or acne scarring, it isn't going to cover. It is a very light coverage. It doesn't cover my redness, and mine isn't that extreme even. But I stand by what I said at the beginning of the video before the wear test. I think this would be excellent for mature skin who do not have a lot to cover, and for very young skin, or for people who like to feel hydrated, who like to feel like they don't have foundation on their skin, and who like to look really natural. I feel it's very flattering on my skin. My texture looks really reduced, and really my skin looks plump and youthful and really fresh and just very natural, which I'm really a big fan of. If I ran out of this tomorrow, I don't think I'd repurchase it. It's not that special. It's not blowing me away. I'm thinking about the other foundations I have, like my Nars Natural Radiant and my Marc Jacobs Shameless foundation, which I'm loving both of those at the moment. And this is just slightly falling short of both of those for me. It's just, both of those give me slightly more coverage. Both of those give me a more solid medium coverage. The Nars one can be built almost to a pretty decent full coverage. The Marc Jacobs is just a straight medium coverage, and they are just as natural, just as beautiful on the skin, but yeah, there's just something a bit more beautiful about the way they look on me. Although the Marc Jacobs definitely doesn't deal with texture as well as this one. So as I said before, if you have texture skin and that is your main concern, and you really want a light natural foundation with a luminous finish, I don't think you could go far wrong with this one. That is everything I have to tell you about the YSL All-in-One Glow Foundation. I really hope you found this helpful. If you did, please like and subscribe before you go, so I can see you next time. Take care for now. Bye 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 bye.